So what I want to do is set up a new project. I'm going to pick the architectural template. I have in this template, I have on my floor plan view, level 1, I have the cameras that are going to create elevations of anything that's drafted in this area. And I have a very limited number of families. If I open the Families tab here, expand the Families tab, if for example I look under doors, you see I've only got one door style, or the terminology that would be used is that this is a category is a door, the family is single flush, and the types are the different sizes of the door that are available inside the project here. So my first step to set up the project is to go to an elevation view, say the south view. It could be any view. I can look at the horizontal levels that run through my building, and what I'm going to do is create an additional level. The significance is that when you draft something, say I draft a wall, I can say the bottom of my wall is on level 1. So I'm attaching it to something that's a horizontal plane within my building. Let me show you how to create the levels. If you go to the Architecture tab or the Home tab, if you've got Revit Architecture, not Revit 13, you can go to the Datum option and you should see that you've got the level command. If you start to draft somewhere, so I'm simply looking at what are called the listening dimensions, temporary dimensions that are displaying on my screen. And what I can do is move this until it shows 10 feet. And then I can click to place one end, drag, I'm sorry, not drag, but click and then just move my cursor to the right. Now when I see a green line up here, the green dashed line, what that indicates to me is that it's lined up with the ends of the other levels. And if I click there and then hit the escape key or click modify to get out of the command, what you would see was that if I went back to the end of that grid and pick on the circle, they're now actually connected. So when I move one, I'm moving all of them. And that's only important for keeping my annotation symbols here lined up. The other thing I want to point there, see how I can adjust the edge of the level itself by simply clicking the level and then clicking in that circle and dragging to the left. There's my green line, and I know that they're automatically lined up. Levels and grid lines have an option where you can select the level or the grid line, and then you can check or uncheck to decide whether you want the actual level bubble or the grid bubble to show in the drawing itself. So that was how easy it was to create this additional level. There is an option where you can create levels, and I want to show you a shortcut, which is that you can right click on any object that you've created inside Revit and say create similar. So this way I don't need to even go look for it on the ribbon. I can simply say I'm going to create another. The option in the interface here in the options bar is that I can check off the command that says make a plan view. That would mean that when I create a level in my project, it's a horizontal plane, but you'll notice that it displays with a black bubble or marker instead of the blue. And what that tells me is that it's not actually creating a floor view from level 4 here. It's simply a horizontal plane. And they can be named anything that you want. So what you could be doing is, this might be a situation where, for example, you have something called, it could be a roof parapet, and what you're going to say is that you actually want to start drawing the wall where it begins on level 1 but goes all the way up to parapet. Whereas the other levels, the blue ones, are actually cutting through 4 feet above the level to produce floor plans. the parapet is not doing that. It's not producing a view from the model itself, the BIM model. So I'm just going to pick that and delete it. I just wanted to show the difference. The other way that I could create this more quickly would be that if I say that I'm going to create a level, I can use the option that says pick lines, and I could set a horizontal distance. So for example, if I went in and said 10 feet, right, and I imagine you had like a multi-story building, I can move down from the top and I can see the green line indicating where the next level is going to be created in my building. So I could do it that way. Notice that if I move from the bottom up, it creates the offset level in a different direction. So if I go from the bottom up, I might be like creating a foundation level or something along those lines. Now I'm going to delete these levels. I'm just going to select them and delete them. I only need to have maybe 3, so I'm taking them out, and you see they're gone from the view at the same time. Okay, next step is I might want to call these something different. So I can click on the level itself. I'm going to call this 01 ground. And the question is, do I want to change it in the browser up here? You don't have to change it, but to keep it simple, oops, let me correct my mistake there. 01 ground. Let's say, actually, let me not confuse the issue here. Let me call this 00 ground. Let me call this 01 level and 02 roof. Now the only reason I'm typing in the numbers there is I want you to see that what it does in the browser is it sorts alphabetically, so by number, then by letter. So doing it that way, I've got a kind of ground, next level up, next level up. You can change these at any time, and you'll see that there are options that you can control what the floor plans themselves are called. Let me flip to the ground level now, and what I want to do is just show you the other option, which is to create grids. You can do these in a similar way. What I'm going to do is create a grid. So I did the bottom to the top, and it will say 1 by default if it's the first one there. I really don't care about the spacing. I mean, I could go in and say I want them to be 25 feet apart, the same as you saw with the levels. I can do it like that, but again, knowing that they're parametric, I can put them in and correct them later on. So that's what I did at the moment. I'm going to right click and say create similar. I'm going to go from left to right. Now usually you can create the grid with the number that you want. So instead of a number here, what I'm going to do is pick on this and say A, and that would mean that the next one that I create, so if I say create similar, it'll automatically increment. The next one will be called B, and then the next one will be called C. So that's the only ones that I'm putting in here. Now what I wanted to show with the grids in place were that I could pick a grid and I could edit the temporary dimension to set the size. And I can edit this anytime that I want. One issue that comes up is that the temporary dimensions, when they show up, you don't really know where they're going to show up. It depends on the other objects that are in the project. So it might be beneficial to, under the Annotate tab, to put in some real dimensions. It's also on your Quick Access toolbar, this command here, the Align Dimension. You see what I do is I pick on the pick on the grid, pick on the grid, pick on the grid. Now the last point that I pick is me positioning the dimension itself. So if you see, it's like select the object, select the object, select the object, but the last click is, wherever I click on the screen is, that's where it's putting the dimension string. Okay, so then I've got kind of a smart setup here where what I can do is I can adjust the ends of my grid, left or right, so that they look the way that I want them to be in the project. Now the second tip I want to mention here is that I drew the levels first, because then any grids that I add in the plan views here are automatically going to extend all the way through the existing levels. So if I didn't have level 3 at the time that I had drawn my grids, the grids would have come in looking like that, and there would be no level 3, which would have meant that I'd have to go back and bring it up so that I can be sure that when I go to the roof level I can see the grids in there. So think of it as a way of avoiding additional work if you make all the levels first and then create the grids.